Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, January the 26th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I am host the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. Before we do get started, we do let you know, guys, we try to be a family-friendly podcast, at least most of the time, and watching our language. However, sometimes words do fly. At the same time, guys, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for young viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, middle of the week. So how do we start this? I never thought I would say it in such a way that, you know what? Democrats are starting to have some really, really, really bad ideas.
This morning, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced that she does plan to run for re-election in 2022.
Our democracy is at risk because of assaults on the truth, assault on the U.S. Capitol, and the state-by-state assault on voting rights. This election is crucial. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy. But as we say, we don't agonize, we organize. And that is why I am running for re-election to Congress and respectfully seek your support.
Joining us, CNN senior political correspondent and anchor of Inside Politics Sunday, Abby Phillip. Abby, with your political decoder ring on, what did she just say? What didn't she say? And what does it all mean?
Yeah. Well, we don't agonize, we organize is a very Nancy Pelosiism for we've got a tough road ahead, and she knows that. I mean, Democrats are in the middle of a pitched battle for control of the House of Representatives, and Nancy Pelosi knows that she's the general and she cannot leave the fight in the middle of the battle. So it's important for her to announce that she's going to stay on, in part because this cycle, 29 other Democrats have already said that they're going to retire or not run for re-election. That is almost a high water mark in recent history. And it's a real sign that many members, rank and file members, know that this is going to be really, really tough. Many of them are headed for the exits, and Democrats are trying to hold on to as many of those seats as possible.
Okay, so with that being said, guys, there is no other way I could put this except for the simple fact of the matter is, bad idea. There's a reason why a lot of people are going to go, but Nancy Pelosi is a great Democrat. This goes back to what I said. Again, we are 8 months away from midterms, and it always seems on the road to midterms or any other elections, do politicians sometimes remember, hey, you do work for the people that elected you there. And don't get me wrong about Nancy Pelosi. She has had her wondrous career. She has had her wondrous career in the House as a Democrat, but it goes back to what I said about a lot of these guys. It's just that when there is no limit on the terms they can serve, it's almost as if they're not really trying to move forward and get anything done. That's why I said a long time ago, and I keep saying in my podcast, I keep saying that every senator and every representative should get 2 consecutive terms. You can serve 2 consecutive terms, and then you have to bow out of one. You have to bow, and on that third one, you got to bow out. I mean, yeah, you might come back, run 2 terms again. That's fine. But for one political session of Congress, you have to sit out. And it's plagued the Republicans as well as the Democrats. In this case, the simple fact of the matter is, I don't see Nancy Pelosi as progressive. Keep in mind, she was very numb. She was very quiet on a lot of things in the Buildback Better plan, although she did vote for it. But when it came down to canceling student loans, when it came down to go after Wall Street, when it came down to putting a wall between Wall Street and politicians, meaning that, for the simple fact of the matter, that politicians should not have politicians actually should put all of their assets in a blind trust when it comes to investing. They should not have control of it since they have so much direct access to the Wall Street. she's been very silent on those things. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to the midterms, I'm going to keep saying this again about the midterms. Democrats are going to have a harder road because Democrats are going to have a harder time convincing people to still vote for them because they do not have a lot in the win column. Not this time. The only thing they've actually passed successfully was the American Rescue Plan, which got us a single $1,400 stimulus check. And then on top of that, you got the infrastructure bill passed, which is going to help America fix its bridges, roads, and other structures that are woefully needing repair. But let's be honest. They failed on voting rights. They failed to remove the filibuster. They failed on the John Lewis Act. They failed on the George Floyd Police Reform Act. They failed on the Voting Rights Act. Five things, 3 of them that were key parts of Biden's agenda have all fallen dead. Not the fault of Pelosi, but again, Democrats did not come together. And now Pelosi is now asking to run again for the House. To me, it's a bad idea because there needs to be new blood. There needs to be progressives. A progressive movement needs to finally happen, not just in the House, but also in the Senate. But again, Democrats are going to have a harder time because Republicans, all they got to do is convince idiots to vote for them again, which is very easy to do when they're idiots. Because for some odd reason, Republican voters have a memory issue of what it used to be when they were under a Republican administration. Unless you're a corporation or a rich person, that was the only time anybody was ever profitable under a Republican administration. That's the truth. That's history. But again, with Pelosi rerunning again, it just doesn't make sense to me. That is. But like I said, Democrats are going to have a harder time, especially come November. Come November when the midterm elections happen, it's going to be interesting. That's all I can say about that. Moving right along, guys, I did want to catch this story as well. The Biden administration is withdrawing its COVID-19 vaccination and testing regulations aimed at large businesses, following the Supreme Court's decision to basically block the rule that was announced last week. And again, I say this is a bad idea. Keep in mind, the Biden administration was pushing forward that large businesses would have to have vaccination requirements because we are still dealing with COVID-19 and its many variants. However, a lot of people who apparently are still against getting the vaccine were also up in arms saying that, once the vaccines were required, that they may lose their jobs because of their choice. You guys heard me many times on this podcast sit there and say that, again, it's amazing how people sit there and cry about choice, but when a business requires its employees to be vaccinated, y'all say your choice is being taken away from you, when, again, it's just a business exercising its rights to choose. That being said, I still say it's a bad idea because given the fact that the COVID cases right now are extremely high and that the Omicron variant is definitely an aggressive strain of COVID-19 out there and how it can infect so many at one time, it does not help to remove the thing that can actually prevent more infections from happening, which could also, could actually turn down the pandemic. So again, I'm not for this as far as large businesses because they sell on the back end. This will still be applied to small businesses, which again makes no sense considering that all these companies out here are short-strained because of the vaccination requirement because so many of their workers refuse to get vaccinated for reasons beyond my comprehension. But now that has actually been struck down, companies will more than likely, some companies still may keep the vaccination requirement. Some may not. It depends on who the employer is at that time. But again, I say it's a bad idea. But so far, it seems to be all that we're getting from the political world these days. But moving right along, guys, have you ever seen it so bad? Because again, with the Omicron variant and so many people out, that parents are now being asked to be substitute teachers. I can't make this up. This is actually happening in Texas.
Breakfast with the Stone family is usually served with a side of chaos.
Can it get off the grandmother's sewing machine, please?
Getting their 6 school-age children out the door isn't easy. And on top of that, today, Jan Stone is starting a new job, substitute teacher.
Honestly, I don't know what I'm expecting. I am petrified and excited at the same time.
The latest COVID-19 surge has caused extreme staffing shortages at school districts across the country, fighting to keep in-person classrooms open.
What does Miss Reed do?
I don't know where Miss Reed is today.
In Hayes County, south of Austin, so many teachers are sick with COVID-19 or in quarantine School district officials are asking parents to become substitute teachers. Jan Stone answered the call, and this morning she's teaching second graders.
Good morning. How are you? I am Mrs. Stone. I am going to be your substitute today.
And as you're sitting at home and you're watching this latest surge and teachers are calling in sick and staffing shortages, were you worried that your kids were going to be sent home?
Absolutely. I look at the thing, it's like, okay, not their class this week, not this class. So yeah, I'm very concerned about that. That totally derails life for us.
One day last week, school officials here say they needed 455 substitutes, but could only fill 40% of the spots. The staffing shortage sends school administrators scrambling to figure out where to put kids without a teacher. Hayes Consolidated School Superintendent Eric Wright says they're doing whatever it takes to keep the doors open.
I talk to kids a lot, and they just tell me that the quality of education is so much better in person than it was remote.
How close has it come to the point where, hey, we just need to shut everything down? We don't have the staff to keep going.
Pretty close, but we've been able to keep our head above water.
But it sounds like you're on the razor's edge. Like this could go either way on any given day.
Yes, you're correct.
In Oklahoma, school resource police officers helped fill in when teachers were out sick. To keep schools open, the Oklahoma governor is allowing state employees to work as substitute teachers. In New Mexico, the governor is expected to work as a substitute this week, as she's pushing state employees and National Guard members to fill staffing shortages as well.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Brian McKinney owns this World War II themed miniature golf course in Buda, Texas.
This is almost like a classroom.
Right.
McKinney has 2 children in Hayes County schools. He signed up to be a substitute teacher starting this week. After a year of learning from home, he wants to do whatever it takes to keep his kids in the classroom.
So it was a pretty rough year last year. Yeah.
So the idea of going back to virtual learning is not something you want to see.
No, definitely not. I don't want my kids to not be at grade level next year and decrease, their education. So clearly it's important to me as a parent.
You're going to be the most popular substitute teacher in the entire district.
We'll see. We'll know in about a week.
Now imagine that for a sole fact of the matter, guys, that literally and figuratively, your school system is so bad and hit by so much by COVID that they're pulling anybody and everybody to be a substitute teacher. Now, I mean, please tell me what you think out in the comments, but to me, that's a dangerous thing. I mean, we just got off knowing that, a lot of substitute teachers that they bring in may not be background checked, may not, the same things that most educators go through, background check, your fingerprinting, you're going through the FBI database, things of that nature. But the fact that, you're so desperate to keep schools open that it's almost a level of danger to that. It really is. It's a level of danger to me. It's like, yeah, you might have school resource officers, which is fine. You might have parents. I always think parents with an educational background, because that's where I am on this. Because let me tell you something. As a kid who had substitute teachers, you had some cool substitute teachers that actually taught you some stuff, probably more stuff than what you probably should have known as your age. Because I know I had a chemistry teacher that taught us a lot of stuff that we weren't supposed to know. But, he made learning fun. At least it was fun. It was learning. But at the same time, you also have the fact that you might have uneducated parents that are in a situation where someone had trusted the school system to take care of their child. Again, it's dangerous. But I also understand from the other side of it, not a lot of children do well with remote learning. In-person learning is miles greater. I will not argue that. But how much to an extreme are we going to take, especially in Texas? I mean, it's not just happening in Texas, it's happening even in my home state of Tennessee too, where, again, it's just like, how much risk are we willing to take just to keep the doors open? We say, Kelly, wow, that's sad. It is. I will keep my child at home. I mean, that would be the logical thing to do. But I understand. Some folks are like, my kid is suffering from remote learning. They've only been in school 2 months out of their entire school year. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, the problem is just that the bane of this whole entire problem is we are not taking care of the pandemic. That's why I keep telling people are mad. People are mad when they go to fast food places at 9 o'clock at night and they got closed early. People are mad that grocery stores aren't able to stock as fast because they don't have the necessary staff. People are mad that your favorite restaurant may be taking in less patrons because they don't have enough staff to support everybody. Again, this goes back to what all I said. Imagine a world where everybody got on board and just said, you know what, we're going to get vaccinated. We're going to get the shot. We are going to do everything that we can. Imagine as a whole, a nation, if you will, would get vaccinated and watch the numbers go down. That's how we beat polio. That's how we beat smallpox. That's how we beat the measles. But that's my argument. Every time I hear this, I'm like, you have a school system in Texas right now that has everybody and their mama, and that is not an exaggeration. Everybody and their mom is now a substitute teacher. And all I'm going to say is, when are we going to, I said, that quality of learning is definitely going to go downhill just because the simple fact of the matter is you don't have quality educators. That's just doing everything you can to keep your head above water except ignore the obvious. That's all I'm saying. But speaking of things you should be worried about, the Supreme Court is going to basically decide on the fate of affirmative action. No, it's not the 1960s. Unfortunately, that is a true statement. The Supreme Court is going to decide affirmative action when it comes to race and college acceptance. Again, you can't make this stuff up.
Now, questions about the use of race in college admissions, they have been asked, answered, debated, discussed, argued over for decades, and now they're heading to the nation's highest court. This week, the Supreme Court justices announced they will take up a pair of cases to reconsider the legality of affirmative action under the Constitution and our civil rights laws, as they invoke some of the oldest and most elite schools, as well as state schools. A decision could be sweeping right across the higher education landscape, maybe into private hiring at companies and federal contracting, all kinds of other areas. So our ABC News senior reporter on this, Devin Dwyer, joins us with the details. Devin, you're up at the court so often. You're following these cases. The morning they came down, you were right on it. So who brought these challenges and what's at stake?
Yeah, Terry, these are cases brought by a group of conservative students, mostly Asian Americans, who say they were discriminated against by Harvard University, the University of North Carolina, in favor of Black and Hispanic students, essentially discriminated against on the basis of race. And they've been organized by a longtime opponent of affirmative action. His name is Edward Bloom. And so this case is really a test for this court, the 6-3 conservative court, on where race factors in so many of our policies, but of course in education and in admissions. And if it feels like we've been here before and this question has been settled, it's because it has. The Supreme Court has weighed in several times over the years, as you know well, and decided this issue. It's been long considered, settled, established law that schools can use race as a factor in deciding the admission of students. But now with this new conservative majority and this engineered case, the conservative justices will get a chance to take a second look at it. And many are expecting it may not fare very well, the policy.
It may not fare very well, in part because while the Supreme Court has upheld race-conscious admissions, hasn't done so really enthusiastically, going all the way back to the Bakke case back in the 1970s. And one of the landmark reaffirmations of the constitutionality, the legality of affirmative action, was the Grutter versus Bollinger case in 2003. Sandra Day O'Connor, the crucial vote there, saying, yes, affirmative action can move forward. But she said, the court expects that 25 years from now, she wrote for the court in 2003, the use of racial preferences will no longer be necessary to further diversity in education. So Sandra Day O'Connor said, yeah, but let's put a time limit on this. While it hasn't been 25 years, it's close at this point. I wonder if the way the court has almost reluctantly upheld affirmative action will make it easier for those conservatives, those new conservatives in control of the court, to just steamroll it and outlaw it.
And that's the scary part. That is the scary part. That, yes, affirmative action, as we know it, has been in place to basically make it that fact that race does play a factor. Colleges use affirmative action just to make sure that they're not caught on the we are not against Black people. Because let's be honest about what affirmative action really is. Affirmative action is really for Black people. It is really, we could argue that it's about race. We could argue that it's about sexual orientation or preference. We can argue that it's about how you identify yourself as far as gender identity and fluidity. But let's be honest, affirmative action is basically for black people because that's what was the basis of it. I mean, it was simple fact of the matter is we didn't actually get a fair shake as far as jobs, as far as schools, as far as pretty much everything. And now the simple fact of the matter is this is the part that's scary. The scary part about all this is that I have been saying, guys, we are in the midst of a we are more in the midst for the Supreme Court to turn around and reverse that. Just like they circumvented Roe versus Wade, they may circumvent affirmative action. Hey, Kayla, more for white women. Nah, affirmative action is definitely not more for white women. I can tell you that off the bat. I could argue. I mean, I could really on one day, Kayla, when I can see you again, I will definitely explain why affirmative action is definitely not made for white women because, woo, that's a whole other story. But I will definitely tell you about it. We'll be more than willing to discuss that with you. But trust me, you'll definitely know. But the thing about affirmative action is if it is circumvented or if it is actually struck down in some ways, that goes across the board. Jobs can, I mean, there are going to be some companies that are legally held by affirmative action that may not be legally held anymore. You've probably heard the term minority hire. You've probably been the minority hire. I know I was. I'm not gonna lie. I knew I was the minority hire at a job when you're the only black person there among a whole sea of white people. You're the minority hire. You're that check mark. You're that check mark that has to be there so a company sits there and says, "Oh, we're not racist. Here's our single black person among 100 people." That's their check marks. And trust me, every HR has a minority hire. But again, I know this isn't the case of Asian American students not being accepted by Harvard, which is, let's be honest, a predominantly Ivy League and also Caucasian entrance school. So I'm not surprised by that, but I'm more concerned about what that Supreme Court may rule for. Because keep in mind, they already sat there and told Texas, keep your abortion law. I mean, like Roe versus Wade is the law of the land, but they just told Texas, keep your abortion law. Where it makes no sense. Keep your abortion law, which again is a crazy law for those who don't know, that abortions in Texas a woman cannot have an abortion if she's basically past 6 weeks. Which, let's be honest, no woman knows she's pregnant at 6 weeks. And on top of that, people can literally, they have a snitch line to where folks can literally go out and snitch on people getting abortions, and they have a bounty, a $10,000 bounty on that. So again, Texas in my mind is worse than Florida in the Hold My Beer challenge. But this is the point I'm making about affirmative action, that it needs to stay as it is because it's effective, and that in fact it has been working, and we've had decades of data to prove it. But with a Supreme Court that's leaning toward the right, that is pretty much being very conservative in its dealings and could possibly overthrow or circumvent affirmative action, we all should be very concerned about that. But while this is going on, we kind of forgot about another court case. Well, I would say we kind of forgot, but let's be honest, a lot of things have happened in 2022 already. It's not even in the January yet. But let's not also forget that there also are the cops that are being charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights. Yes, that civil rights case is going on, and it just concluded with day 2, and this is what what actually occurred during that actual day 2 of the case.
Minnesota, a Cup Foods employee is on the stand today in the trial of 3 former police officers charged with failing to intervene in George Floyd's death. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster covering this trial for us. So, Shaq, police were called to Cup Foods after George Floyd allegedly used a counterfeit bill there. Who's the employee on the stand today, and what is he saying?
This is Christopher Barton. This is the employee who was at the register when George Floyd handed him that fake $20 bill. If you remember the state trial about 9 months ago, he gave pretty emotional testimony in which he said that he regretted accepting that bill, and instead he should have just told him not to hand in that bill and tried to get an actual $20 bill instead. And you had similar testimony from him today, going through the account of what it was like to see George Floyd in that Cup Foods. He said that George Floyd appeared high at the time, but that he was friendly, that he didn't think that George Floyd knew he was handing over that counterfeit $20 bill. And then he talked about the interaction of going outside of Cup Foods. Once his manager told him to essentially try to get a real bill from George Floyd outside, interacting with him at the car outside. So this is quite unique because this is testimony, again, that we've heard before in a previous trial, but now it's being used in the context of this trial.
Shaq, earlier today, an FBI video analyst was back on the stand. Tell us about her testimony and what did the jury see?
Yeah, the reason why we heard from her was less because she was giving extremely compelling testimony, but more so that the state or the prosecution in this case can hand in and submit those body camera videos as evidence. So throughout her testimony, we saw the multiple angles of this incident with the multiple body camera videos of those officers that you're looking at on your screen. So it was extensive testimony because they played these nearly 20, 30-minute long videos individually. Almost all of them they played in full. According to some of the poll reporters, it appears as if at least two of the jurors, after watching this instance, after watching George Floyd die multiple times, did become somewhat emotional. Some people were reaching for tissues at a certain point, according to those poll reporters inside the courtroom. But you really got the sense that they were bringing on this FBI analyst so that they can admit this key video evidence into the record.
Shaq, the attorney for ex-officer Thomas Lane saying that Lane will take the stand. Any word on the other officers?
No word on the other officers, and that was something that we heard in those opening statements yesterday. And that was one of the first times that we got a hint of what the defense will be from these three ex-officers. You know, Thomas Lane, his attorney, in addition to saying that he'll take the stand, called Thomas Lane a gentle giant, said that he actually did show care for George Floyd's condition at one time, asking if they should roll him over, and at another point, going into the ambulance and performing CPR on George Floyd. We also heard from the attorney of former Officer King, who his attorney really put the blame at Derek Chauvin for being the senior officer on the scene, but also put the blame on the Minneapolis Police Department, saying that the police department didn't prepare this rookie officer who is days into the job on his own, didn't prepare him for a situation like this. So that's something we really learned yesterday, got a sense of what the defenses will look like as this trial continues.
Who else are you expecting to hear from on the witness stand this week?
We don't know. We don't have a specific timeline of these witnesses, but you can expect it to mirror or at least somewhat resemble what we saw in that state trial. So we can expect to see Darnella Frazier, the 17-year-old at the time who took the Facebook video that went and became viral all across the country and all around the world. We can expect her to take the stand at some point. We do know that Courtney Ross might be taking the stand. That was the partner of George Floyd, but it's not clear when they'll be taking the stand and if for sure we can expect to see them on the stand.
How about George Floyd's family? We've been wondering what they might say, when they might talk. What are you hearing from them this week?
Yeah, they spoke yesterday after court, and I do want to play some sound from Phalonis Floyd, the brother of George Floyd. But before I do, I just want to note that these are family members who are inside the courtroom as these proceedings are happening. As they heard from defense attorneys essentially point the finger at George Floyd and say he was not responding to officers and was resisting and was high at the time. They were in the courtroom. They were there as these videos were being played, one after the other, showing George Floyd taking his final breaths. You can definitely feel for them for the emotion that they'll be feeling as they watch this trial go through. And listen to a little bit of what the brother, Phalonis Floyd, told reporters yesterday.
My brother had the weight of 4 officers on him. And the fact that the world, he was basically carrying the weight for the world when he had those officers on him because of systemic racism that plagued our nation for years.
According to those poll reporters inside the courtroom, there were moments where Courtney Ross, again, the partner of George Floyd, where she was had her head down, she was wiping tears and quietly sobbing, in the words of one of the reporters. This is going to be a pretty intense trial that's suspected to last up to 4 weeks.
Oh, it sure sounds.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot. Now, keep in mind, this is a civil rights trial that is going on for these three officers that are being tried separately, of course, from the no longer, I would say he's pretty much in hiding right now. I'm pretty sure of it, to see whether or not that they have violated George Floyd's civil rights, which beyond the pale, they really did. I mean, let's be honest, there was no reason for them to, be that aggressive over a man who allegedly, which again, they never did confirm that, allegedly gave a $20 fake dollar bill, was high, but yet, I've seen people on marijuana. People on marijuana are nothing like people on meth. You ever see somebody on meth? Try getting them down to the ground. But again, the whole idea of it all is that this is an example, and I still say it best, if it was not yet for Mrs. Frazier, Danielle Frazier, if it was not for her video, we wouldn't even be here. I'm not going to lie. If we depended completely on police cams, I'm going to be honest, I don't think we would have had a trial. I think the simple fact of the matter is that brave woman, we're putting that recording on Facebook, and for the world to see, I think got us this far. And I hate to say that because that's how the wheels of justice work until we decide to change things by putting people in certain positions. But that in itself is the truth. So we will definitely be following that civil rights trial to see where it comes from there. We do know that all four officers will be seeing jail time. But will it be additional jail time? That's what we'll find out. But moving right along, guys, I want to say the Democrats are full of bad ideas. Remember the two Democrats that have basically held up the wall? They were basically the gift the Republicans never asked for but are thankful for this year. Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. Well, Sinema is finding out very quickly what happens when you decide to go against the will of your own people, especially with the midterms coming up. And let's just say it's not really looking good for her to stay in office.
Rights activists weigh in on Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema after she voted to keep the filibuster, something that helped put a stop to key voting rights bills in the Senate. Overnight, Voto Latino, a nonprofit aimed at helping young Hispanic and Latino voters, launched the Audio Cinema campaign. They plan to buy ads in Arizona ahead of the 2024 primary when Senator Sinema is up for re-election in 2 years. This comes after the Arizona Democratic Party's executive board formally censured Senator Sinema over her filibuster vote. So we know how many Democrats feel about her, but what about the people who voted her into office, which is a mix of Democrats, independents, even some Republicans? NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Leanne Caldwell spoke with some of them, joins me now from Maricopa County, Arizona. So Leanne, Maricopa County is home to 60% of the voters in the state. It is a big county. What have voters from both parties been saying to you about Senator Sinema and the decisions she's made in Washington?
Good morning, Joe. So for the fact that Democrats, the base of the party here, are unhappy with her, that is absolutely an understatement. Those Democrats are furious. They think that she is not supporting the president, not supporting voting rights, which is something really critical to them, because all of this is happening in the backdrop where the state legislature is once again introducing a bunch of legislation to make it more difficult for Arizonans to vote. So I talked to a couple members of that legislature. Both are Democrats. One, Andres Cano, is a huge critic of Senator Sinema right now. Another Democrat, Cesar Chavez, he says, hey, let's give her a chance. Let's listen.
She stands up for what's right for the people, and she's not playing politics where she just goes by the party. I didn't vote for her last time.
Yeah.
But I would do it this time for sure.
It's kind of interesting to figure out if she's really going to be if she's going to be right about her decision not to support that change.
So I threw to the wrong soundbite, Joe, but those were voters. And so let me talk about those voters. The first one is a Republican. And I spoke to several Republicans here on the streets who say that they're really happy with her right now. Independent voters, they say, well, it was a little bit of a mixed bag. So she does have some support here among voters, but they are not the base of the party, Joe.
So within the Democratic Party specifically, you've spoken with elected officials within the party. What are they saying about Sinema right now?
Yeah, now we'll get to the other two. And that's the thing. The base of the party is just not happy, most of it anyway. And so let's play that soundbite of those two representatives. Andres Cano, he's a young, up-and-coming member of the state legislature. He is, like I said, very critical. And then another, Cesar Chavez, he says he comes from a low to middle income section of Phoenix, and he says that his voters just don't have time to worry about voting rights. Let's listen to what they had to say.
I know it's a couple years away, but would you support her campaign next time around?
Absolutely not. And I think ultimately we've seen a lot of organizations who help get her to the point that she is today to be able to demonstrate that we're serious on this one particular issue, on protecting our freedom to vote.
I think that the majority of Democrats in this case are going to look at what's that 99% that she's done for our party, for our platform, but most importantly for Arizona. And that 1%, push it aside, because at the end of the day, it's not easy. It's not easy to be an elected official when you have to hold yourself responsible and accountable to all individuals.
So, but the question is she going to run for re-election again? Her race isn't until 2024. And there's a huge effort to find a primary against her among the base of the party. And so even if she has support among a lot of Republicans, is she able to get through a Democratic primary, Joe?
Here's the crazy part about this. That for the fact of the matter is, I love how every time, she did right, she voted, she stood for her principles, and therefore I keep looking for certain things. This might be biased, but let's be honest. Black people have been biased all our back. We've been biased in profile. It's about time we did the same thing to the other people. But every time I hear that, she did right, she stood up on her right, she stood for the people, and you know what? I didn't vote for her. I didn't vote for her. I'm a Republican. I expected that. I even expected the all-American hat with the one nation under God, because for some odd reason, some people think that we were still founded in a Christian nation. We weren't. It's a simple fact of the matter that we left. It's a matter that the founding fathers actually left for religious prosecution and taxation, which I still find amazing, that we still, for the longest time in schools, were told one nation under God. That's the reason why I stopped saying that pledge of the 4th grade. But anyway, Kristen Sinema, let's get to the point of it. If she runs, it'll probably more likely be for Republican. And those that are supporting her, let's just say they're just making sure to get their seats ready, or I should say their lips ready for the oral fixation club that is going to be her. It's amazing. It's amazing how the state representative, Mr. Chavez, sat there and said, "Well, think of the 99% of things that she's done. What has she done? I mean, for this entire time she's been in Congress, name one thing that she has done." Because I looked it up. Trying to see exactly what positives did Kristen Sinema bring to her, not only bring to the U.S., but bring to her state of Arizona. Couldn't find any. I can tell you what she was against. I've been saying that for the last couple of podcasts, what she was against. But I cannot find anything that she accomplished outside of making sure corporations didn't pay more and rich people didn't pay more. I guess you can call that an accomplishment. I call it more of a wall. So, yes, as they said, her race isn't going to happen until 2024. Damn. But at the same time, do I think that she's going to run again? I would like to say no. I really would, just because, they are going to find people to run against her. There's going to be, I hope, this is my hope, because I've been saying this a lot, guys, that we can make change happen, but it has to happen at the local levels. We have to start with our cities. Once we get the cities, then we start with states. When we get states, then we can go to federal. It's who we're sending to work in our city and town governments. Eventually the ones that go to state, eventually the ones that go into the House and the Senate, and probably the presidency. It's who we're sending up. But understand, this goes back to what I said about senators and representatives serving limited terms. Because if you guys haven't noticed, you've never heard, same way you never heard of a broke preacher is the same way you never heard of a broke politician. Politicians pretty much get their behinds kissed on a daily basis. Special interest groups will turn around and flood their PACs with money. At the same time, they will make sure that how much ever money is swinging is however the way the wind's blowing. And I think that's unfair, basically because of Citizens United and the fact of how that happened, that allowed that dark money into politics. But still, It goes to the fact of who we bring in. Just like I said about that representative from Louisiana that has a 37-second commercial of him smoking marijuana and sitting there saying, I am running for Congress. To my mind, that was the greatest 37 seconds of political ads I've ever seen since Obama. Because again, I always say this is also a clear sign to everybody. I don't smoke marijuana, but I do know friends that do. And again, I've been saying the marijuana plant and its CBD oil has had many opportunities, not just lucrative, but actually applications that can help in the medical field as well. The person that runs, if they turn around and say, I am going to legalize marijuana in my home state, wins by a landslide. Because once you legalize marijuana, you can decriminalize it. And again, that's a boom. I can't think of one city or state that legalized marijuana and had an economic downturn. It's been nothing but piles of cash. Just saying. But in Sinema's case, unless she's going to say something that crazy, I don't see her making it past 2024. But she's not the only person I want to bring up because, again, Manchin, who in my mind acts more Republican than Democrat sometimes, has sat there and said that he is ready to talk about the Build Back Better plan. But he's willing to restart negotiations, and I wish I could make this up, quote unquote, from scratch. Keep in mind, guys, the Build Back Better plan itself was actually a great idea. I mean, it was for the first time going to include paid paternity, maternity leave, something that has never happened. If you've ever been on maternity leave from your job, it's never been paid. You had to have vacation time, but it was also unpaid time for a lot of areas. But the rest of the modern world has paid maternity and paternity leave, sometimes almost up to a full year. America doesn't have that. We also do not have collective bargaining agreements. Yeah, there's unions out there, but there's too many corporations that are hell-bent on busting up unions. And some have been successful at it. Some of them have been very successful, Amazon, at it. So, again, along with the Build Back Better plan, it was to help to not only reverse the Trump tax cuts, but to actually help the middle class, to actually boost people up, to actually include childcare, mental health, things of that nature. Because again, it was supposed to help the American people. And yet at the same time, Manchin couldn't stomach the 1.7, I think at the time it was $2.7 trillion. It might have been $2.7 trillion, and then a lot of numbers got thrown around. 2.7, 1.9, 1.7. Eventually, it did kind of hover around the $1.7 trillion bill mark. And Manchin said, I am not okay with that. Really? Mr. C, I'm on a multi-million-dollar coal industry board, where again from the home state of Virginia, where again coal is still being mined because coal is a dying business. But you yourself don't like EPA regulations, my friend. You are a walking conflict. But are you guys there? And I said, but here's the problem. Here's the problem with Democrats, and I'm going to keep on saying this, guys. The problem with Democrats has always been this. Two people have shown that even though Democrats have used budget reconciliation to pass very little things through, it has prevented those very two same people of the same cloth have prevented so much more from going in that could have helped out the American people tremendously. All I can say is to the states of Arizona and West Virginia, please in 2024, get rid of the people that are basically saying they know better than you, because they're multimillionaires and have lost direct constituent contact. And it goes to show you, because when they say it's too much spending, it's like, it's not your money to spend. It's the American people's. You kind of forgotten that of the ones who elected you. But moving right along, guys, just a couple more stories before we get to our feel-good segment. I have been saying that when it comes to gun laws, I myself am a firearms owner. I still do believe in training. I still do believe in making sure and preparing, because, again, that is a responsible owner. A responsible owner is going to always train, is always going to be aware, simply put, because that reduces accidents and accidental shootings. That being said, I've always sat there and said the only way we're going to curb gun violence that is actually happening in America is to actually introduce more regulation. And San Jose has done exactly that in California, but a lot of people might not like where it's going.
The controversial gun law. 50 people on both sides speaking at tonight's city council meeting on the so-called gun harm reduction ordinance.
Liability insurance will incentivize safer firearm practices. Gun injuries and deaths have gotten out of hand in the United States.
You cannot tax a constitutional right. This does nothing to stop crime.
The ordinance requires gun owners to pay an annual fee of $25 and they must have liability insurance in the event their gun is used in some crimes or by accident. It affects an estimated 50,000 households in San Jose that have a gun.
It's easy to say this isn't going to stop a crook who's intent in killing someone. Well, I challenge anyone to suddenly magically craft that ordinance that way. It doesn't exist. But we can reduce gun harm when we see the expanse of gun harm and how broad it is.
It has been met with strong opposition from gun rights advocates. The Firearms Policy Coalition says in a statement, if San Jose adopts Mayor Liccardo's outrageous and unconstitutional gun control proposals, we will not hesitate to challenge the city's policies in federal litigation and take every possible action to block their enforcement. So moving forward, would the law hold up in court? I spoke with Margaret Russell, a constitutional law professor at Santa Clara University.
It's a restriction, but it's not an overly burdensome one or a ban. And the Supreme Court has held that there can be some regulation.
But she says, since it's a first of its kind law, a lawsuit could go to the Supreme Court.
That's certainly possible. So I think those that threaten this San Jose legislation are hoping to do that.
That is crazy. And I say that's crazy because I actually like that law. I like that law because not only is it checking to make sure that you can pay a fee and carry liability insurance, which again, not a bad idea if you own firearms, to have liability insurance. But again, this is all about regulation. And here's the thing that gun nuts hate. Gun nuts hate the word regulation because the moment they hear additional things have to be done, oh, well, this isn't going to curb the violence from the criminals. That's their go-to line. The go-to line is always more rules and regulations isn't going to stop the criminals. Look at Chicago. Chicago's got the highest rules and regulations in the state, and they're murder capital of the world. They always say that. But again, here's the point I keep saying. If gun nuts are so right about this, why don't you let it happen? I mean, if anything, you're vindicated by what happens, I would think. Because here's my thing. I am all for more regulation and also some restrictions. My thing is, if you have a record of violence, you should not own a handgun. Anytime you purchase a handgun, it should be a background check. Trust me, not every place does it. I can tell you off the bat, there are some places, even here in Tennessee, gun trade night shows, where you can go purchase a firearm, and as long as you have the cash, and as long as you have the ID, no other questions are asked. Which again, that's the big thing that a lot of people hate. A lot of people hate background checks. What do you hate about them? If your record is clean, you should be fine. But at the same time, it's like also a national registry base for all gun owners. I don't want my name in the system. I don't want the government to know how many guns I got. When I hear anybody say that, I want you on the record, because anybody that's ever worried about how much the government knows about you and your firearm starcade, yes, I want you to be on a list because you sound unstable. But it goes back to what I said about regulation. I use Japan. Japan is my greatest example of gun control. They actually have the lowest amount of gun deaths in the world. Lowest amount of gun deaths. You know why? Very simple. Number one, shotguns are outlawed except carried by police and certain people with certain permissions. You can't own a pistol. However, you have to be certified in class and training every year, go through a mental health screening, and on top of that, make sure that all your administration fees are paid up for the year. You have to do that every year you own a firearm because they have you in a registry. If you fail to do that, it's 20 years in jail. Now think about that for a second. How did Japan get it to work so well where in our country, which again, I'm not knocking firearms because I own a few. Why do people have such an issue with that? Your freedom, it's like it's always that whole argument of your guns are going to get taken away from you. They're not. They never have been. And that was the lie that basically made gun nuts go out. And I said this before, anytime there's a shooting, and I hate to say this, because this is the cycle, this is honestly the cycle of violence that we deal with. And how we deal with that is simply this, because they will sit there and say this is how this happens all the time. There's a shooting, people die, there's talk of gun laws, gun sales go through the roof, and then my personal favorite, silence. No actions after that. Because that's what usually happens. Shooting, lives lost, talk about gun control, gun sales go up because people think their guns are getting taken away from them, back to silence. Because at this point, nobody is willing, because keep in mind at the time, the NRA was still a very powerful influence. I mean, they're a shadow of what they are now, but they used to be a very powerful influence back then. And because of that, whenever gun laws came up, it always felt like anybody who ever went against the NRA was pretty much a pariah. And I've never understood that. But I just want to say one time to all gun nuts, if you truly believe that more regulations and restrictions will not help, then you should have no problem in allowing us to pass them just so you can sit there and say, when the data comes back, I told you so. But I think what the true fear is, you don't want this to happen because the simple fact of the matter is it's going to make you accountable. Tell me I'm wrong. But the last story we got, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment is imagine, like I said before, I say this all the time when it comes to vaccinations, that I want people to get vaccinated, not because of the fact that I want a lot more people to live, but at the same time in the hospitals, there are those that are waiting on life-saving medical treatment, as well as surgeries and transplants, things of that nature. People that have kidney dialysis, people that have to have blood transfusions, those that go in for diabetes testing, things of that nature in their areas may have gotten held up or rescheduled because of COVID beds taking up that space. Imagine you waiting for a heart transplant, but being told that you won't do it because of your own choice to not get the vaccine. I cannot make this up.
Ferguson speaking out because her 31-year-old son, DJ, can't. He's waiting on a heart transplant, but is being denied because he won't get the COVID vaccine.
My son's in the hospital, and he needs a heart transplant.
She says DJ has been fighting for his life at Brigham and Women's Hospital, but she says he's been told he's not eligible due to hospital policy.
I couldn't believe it. And then he said to the doctor, "So you're going to let me die?"
She says her son is concerned about the side effects of the vaccine.
He's not an anti-vaxxer or whatever they call it, but, he's compromised. The Mayo Clinic lists it on their website. The myocarditis, pericarditis, and blood clots.
In a statement, Brigham and Women's Hospital saying, like many other transplant programs in the United States, the COVID-19 vaccine is one of several vaccines and lifestyle behaviors required for transplant candidates in the Mass General Brigham system in order to create both the best chance for a successful operation and also the patient's survival after transplantation. Dr. Arthur Kaplan, the head of medical ethics at NYU Grossman School of Medicine, says this is a common type of requirement for a transplant.
Before COVID, if you hadn't had all your shots, they wouldn't do the operation on you. They'd make you wait. They're trying to make the expensive procedure with a lot of rehab involved successful. This isn't some new issue about, oh my goodness, he won't vaccinate. We're going to discriminate against him.
And when it comes to the family's concerns about side effects,
whatever the risks associated with the shot, they're lower than COVID. So what you want to do is prevent COVID.
DJ isn't the only one denied a transplant because of his decision not to get vaccinated. In October, a Colorado woman was denied a kidney transplant because she refused to get the shot for religious reasons. And another man who was waiting for a transplant told his surgery was on hold because of his donor.
A new policy at the Cleveland Clinic now requires both organ recipients and donors to be COVID vaccinated. Sue is not.
Medical, religious, and also freedom.
Ferguson, a father of two with another child on the way, remains in the hospital. His mother says he was in the OR for a separate surgery as we were speaking to her.
And his life is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he might change his mind about the vaccine knowing that?
He might. He could wake up after his surgery today and say, all right, I'm willing to take my risk.
Do you hope he does?
I would want the doctors to treat the patient, not the policy.
All right, Dasha joins us now live here on Top Story. Dasha, we know DJ is not alone. There are a lot of people who are unvaccinated who are waiting possibly for an organ. This is not something that's happening just in a vacuum. But I have to ask you, do these patients have any other options, or this is it? It's get the vaccine to get the organ.
right now, Tom, those are DJ's options. There is the possibility, if he is strong enough to move to a different hospital, that they could try that option. But Tom, the experts I've been talking to say at this point, a lot of hospitals across the country have similar policies. So we are going to be hearing more of these stories. And Tom, the reality is that these types of organs are so scarce. People die every day waiting for them. And doctors have to make tough decisions about patient priority all the time. There's also, Tom, a much more controversial debate going on as well about whether unvaccinated patients should be placed in the back of the line for other types of healthcare like ICU care. And it's a growing debate as hospitals are overwhelmed and some have already had to resort to rationing care, Tom.
How do we Well, let's go ahead and go into this. This might kill the viewership, and this also might have people looking at me funny. He caused his own issue. I mean, anybody who's ever worked in the medical healthcare field, who's ever worked in surgery, operations, who worked in surgery, especially transplant, things of that nature, you guys already, I mean, they can already tell you, yeah, you have to pass certain checks. I mean, you have to make sure that you have all your inoculations. You have to make sure that you are immunized. You have to make sure that you have all these things before we're able to do anything. It's the reason why most folks, if you have a heart condition and they're about to take you to surgery, they pull you out. Why? Because that's a complication. They don't want you to die on the operating table, or if your stress levels are elevated or your blood pressure is elevated, whatever factor that comes into place pretty much halts everything, because again, they don't want you to die on the operating table. So with that being said, if people understand that, what is so hard to understand that a hospital has to now make the decisions? Because I said, this is all, and there's no other way I can put this. This is all based off the fact of the consequences of the unvaccinated folks, which I love that she says she's not an anti-vaxxer. Then what is he? If he's not, look, do you understand what an anti-vaxxer is? An anti-vaxxer is refusing to get a vaccine. They refuse to get a vaccine for numerous crazy reasons that they read somewhere that was not published by a doctor, or not published by a virologist, or not published by a recognized and reputable source of information. They just went off of whatever they just went off whatever Joe Rogan or whoever else they usually follow sat there and said, you know what, that makes sense. It's hard for me to feel bad for a guy who has a second chance at life with a heart transplant and refused to get the vaccine, which is his only roadblock. But now he's like, well, it's unfair. It's unfair. I have a heart transplant, but you're not going to do it because I have a vaccine. Yes, because of hospital policy. Hospitals basically make sure that you have to be up to date on immunizations before you can go under the knife. You know why? Because if they went forward and something happened, your family can sue. Hospital administrators think about all the time. They think about all the time. That's why doctors have malpractice insurance. That's why hospital administrators make sure that every T, and every T is crossed and every I is dotted, because they know if something happens and you died on that table, that the family can come back and sue for malpractice, and 9 times out of 10 win. So it's hard for me to feel bad for that guy, because again, like I said, like you just heard the journalist say, there are still plenty of people out there that need just as much help that aren't getting it because of people like him. And even now, as it gets worse, hospitals have to make that decision that, those that are unvaccinated, do they get pushed to the back of the line while those who are vaccinated get pushed forward? People who are unvaccinated will argue that's unfair. Well, let's be honest. You didn't believe in the COVID-19 vaccine to get it when you were healthy and able, but you still go to the hospital when you're sick. The same doctor you will listen to that tells you to get the vaccine is the same doctor that's going to treat you if you're sick, which I find very confusing. I find it confusing that if you go to the hospital when you're sick, you don't distrust the doctor and everything that he does, but he tells you to get the vaccine. And that's the part you have an issue with. Make that make sense. Because again, it's like, yeah, that's the debate. Do hospitals start pushing unvaccinated to the back of the line? You know what? It's going to come to that eventually. at the current weight of our hospital of America's healthcare system is not designed for this. Hospital systems are not designed for this. Decisions like that, I hope don't get made, may get made someday. And then what? Who do you have to blame? Because you can't blame the hospital. The hospitals are doing everything they can to help people. Doctors have a Hippocratic oath. Do no harm to a patient. At the same time, you want to be helped on your own terms. And a lot of people are realizing, hey, there's this little thing called accountability that, yes, you have to have it too. So it's hard for me to feel bad for a guy who's basically blocking his own transplant from happening because for some odd reason, he believes that a vaccine is going to do more harm to him than a Decepticon Omicron will. Figure that one out. But as we get to our Feel Good segment, guys, usually how the Frack we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes make you lose your faith in humanity, and sometimes just make you just want to sit down and have a second Sunday moment. But we do try to, it's the middle of the week. Tomorrow's Friday, which is Thursday. We're trying to leave you guys on a good note, trying to put some positivity back in your lives. And I'm always a big, big thing on random acts of kindness because you never know what'll happen if you're just kind to somebody. And again, in this case, this UPS driver saying only kind words came back to him twofold.
Driver and that message he left at the front door. We wanted to know what's happened since. Tonight, this simple act of kindness now growing. It is America strong. Just outside Atlanta, UPS driver Dallin Harrell had been delivering packages to this home with a stork outside holding a baby boy. Dallin, who had just had a baby boy too, Devereaux, wanted to wish that family well.
If this is the It's a Boy house, I hope all is going well with your newborn. I had a child around the same time you guys did, and I just hope everything is going good. God bless everyone.
Jessica and Matt Kitchell live there with their newborn Chansey, and they saw that message. They wanted to thank Dallin. They posted the video online and asked if anyone knew him. The response is immediate. 3 days later, Dallin back at the home, this time meeting the family and baby Chansey in mom's arms. Jessica and her family making a care package for Dallin and his family. And it didn't stop there. Mom, Jessica, sharing Dallin's baby registry online. And instantly, books, clothes, toys, all after that UPS driver's kindness. Those gifts from around the country taking up half the truck, as many as 15 packages a day. And tonight he tells us they are still arriving, many from Americans all over this country, right on Dallin's doorstep. The diapers, the high chair, right here with us. Dallin, on that simple act of kindness, his message and the gift now given to him.
I just hope that it continues to be a positive domino effect and people just take from this to be kind and love thy neighbor.
Just loves his message of kindness.
That's what I've been saying, folks. I'm not a preacher by any means of the sort, but I always say it best. If you have the ability to make somebody's life great, whether it's a minute, a day, an hour, a lifetime, go ahead and do it. The world could actually use more random acts of kindness. And like I said, realistically, you never know. And I'm pretty sure in that man's case, he had no idea that was going to happen. None whatsoever. So it's like, imagine just saying a kind word and then it comes back to you twofold. Just saying. It takes zero energy to be nice and decent. It takes everything in you to be a dick. So, with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But before we do get out of here, some shameless plugging as I usually do. I do want to first bring up my buddy who was also watching this, my buddy Big BZA Dot, who will be podcasting back pretty soon. So you definitely check him out. Avon Westwood on Facebook, Big BZA Dot on all socials, where he usually has his Smoking Trailer Sundays every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m., in which he goes over movies, video games, television shows that he finds interesting and definitely wants to share them with you. He also has the RAF podcast, like America's Funniest Home Videos, except done by World Star, only for the grown and intended, every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. But definitely check out his Facebook page and his IG page for new and exciting stuff. And sometimes we post something funny. Avon Westwood on Facebook or Big BZA Dot on all socials. Also, shout out to Aria and Geek Present Geek Salad for allowing me to share my podcast on their page. It's really appreciated, fellas. Guys I met last year, and hopefully we'll have them very soon on my Get Bit podcast. But they are a couple of guys who love everything pop culture and sci-fi, and as well as talking about current events, and do so show with an unfiltered but very intelligent way of doing things, of talking and discussion. I've been on their show a few times. It's definitely fun, but definitely wanted to give them love. You can definitely find Geek Salad on Facebook as you're on Facebook and on YouTube as you're currently seeing right now. So definitely give those guys some love as well. Finally, for me, guys, my Black Box handle, that worked out great. My Instagram handle, BlackBox447. You can definitely follow me there. As I usually do post a lot of things, movie reviews, video game reviews, television shows, sometimes gym stuff, because I'm a big person on fitness and I do a couple push-ups. But aside from that, like I said, I also like to post things about motivation and encouragement and positivity, because in the words of Issa Rae, I'm rooting for everybody Black, but I'm also rooting for those people to win. I don't even have to know you. I may not like you, but I will always root for you to win. I am on that one right there, because I'm all for inclusivity. But for right now, Black people, I am definitely rooting hard for each and every one of you. I truly am. But aside from that, guys, of course, the streaming ticker at the bottom you see there, if you copy and paste that into your link tree, will actually take you to my Facebook and YouTube groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, of course, Alpha's podcast. Slight programming note, the Get Bit podcast will not be this Friday. We're actually going to be moving into a special Saturday episode at 2 p.m., so definitely look out for that, as I will have a guest on there, and of course, Joe will be on there with me as well. So definitely look up forward to that. Also, guys, like I said before, if I haven't said it enough already in this podcast, I will keep saying it. Please get vaccinated. Please, if you haven't already done so, please get your boosters. Please get your shots. Please mask up when you're going out and about, because the Decepticon, as in Omicron, is very, very aggressive, very strong. I do not want to see another person go to the hospital. I do not want to see another person sick. We can prevent this if we all decide to work in this together and stop allowing our consequences to affect others. It's just that simple. That being said, guys, last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to change minds. We are not trying to persuade you. We are simply doing what news stations will try to do. Give you all the information allowed to make up your own mind. We do a lot better as a society. We're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that should have been done back then, by electing our first Madam Vice President who is Black. By not learning from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's how we wound up as a failed celebrity apprentice, being the president of the Americas, and therefore have us all wondering how the frack we got here. That being said, guys, thank you all for watching. If you're watching this in the playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know what you guys thought about everything that we talked about. Aside from that, guys, like I said, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this. Peace.